should Christians read fiction? They're lies, right? They're make-believe. Didn't Paul say that we don't follow cunningly devised fables and myths? Christians are truth people. We're history people. We look for answers not in made-up tales, but in things that actually happened. Things like the incarnation, God becoming flesh. Stories not only to learn lessons from, but also to believe. This has been a problem for a very long time, and we see it in the life of figures like Augustine of Hippo, the great bishop in North Africa and Latin church father. In the first book of his Confessions, he talks about his education, about how he was trained in Greek and Latin and exposed to the great epics of Homer and of Virgil. And he repents of having wept for the deaths of fictional characters and having rejoiced in the exciting exploits of other fictional characters. He wept for Dido, and he was thrilled with the adventures of Aeneas. And for that, he repents because he feels that not only was it a waste of his time, but it was a waste of his emotions. He was sinking his time and his feelings into the wrong things, sinking them into fiction. Should we follow Augustine's lead in this? I don't think so. I actually think another Christian from some centuries later is a better guide on this. Philip Sidney, writing in the 1500s, wrote a defense of poesy. It doesn't mean just poetry, all of it ever, but specifically fiction, stories that are made up, stories that aren't simply retellings of events that have actually happened in history. And Philip Sidney says that fiction actually does two very important things which he, and I think other Christians, can value. He says that fiction delights and it instructs. Delight is easier to see. Most of us who read fiction read it for fun and not for profit, as English professors do. I read for fun. I've got novels on my bedside table. It's a kind of Sabbath from your daily life. You can enjoy the adventures, you can thrill, you can chill, you can do all of those kinds of experiences that are take us into the full range of human experience from the comfort of your own couch or bed or wherever it is that you happen to read. Delight is easy to talk about. Instruction is perhaps a little more challenging for readers, Christian readers, to wrap their heads around. How does fiction delight? Well, often we look to history for lessons, but history has a problem. It just keeps going. And often the lessons that we derive from historical events depend on our limited knowledge. We might think that we learn great lessons from a historical hero, but the further we dig, the more we find he had feet of clay. We might think that a historical event was clearly positive or clearly negative, but again, the more we dig, the more we find that there were collateral benefits or collateral damage that we didn't know about before, and it becomes much more challenging to make lessons out of it. Fiction's different. Fiction allows an author to take control of the ideology, of the ideas, of the lessons, of the philosophy inside of his story, and permits him to more cleanly present characters as types, more clearly show the relationships of causality and choice, to more clearly show the cost of good actions and the cost of bad actions. These are the ways that fiction can teach, and that makes it valuable for a Christian. One problem, though, still remains. Can Christians learn from fiction that isn't written by other Christians? Fiction that's coming from a perspective that doesn't teach the kinds of values that Christians have, that Christians prize? Again, I think the answer is yes. And once again, we're going to anchor this in the divine image that's within us. Even those who do not profess Christ as Lord can still say true things. And even when they speak lies, lies often end up tracing the contours of truths if we see past them. Christ told us to be cunning as serpents and innocent as doves. And if we put on our serpent hats, we can sometimes see through even the faults that's within fiction coming from a non-Christian perspective and still discern in it things worth knowing and things worth learning.